Thank you, Abraham. Like the other man here, I knew you were going to pick me. The universe has brought me together with an author who has written a diet book. And I feel that this person can save millions of people's lives. And my question is, I want to, in all passion, in all altruistic feelings, want to help her to help save millions of people's lives.
Well, there are a number of things that we want to say about that. It's wonderful to get hold of something that you believe in.
Right.
And it's wonderful to find what feels like a solution to what a lot of people are asking for. In fact, that's what that feeling is when you find something that gives you that sort of exhilaration. That means that it is answering a big question. And so it's not unusual to see something or to be introduced to something that you can feel is answering an even bigger question than you are personally asking. In other words, it's like the mass consciousness is asking. The thing that we most want to help you to realize is that as mass consciousness is made up of individuals, as these individuals are knowing what they don't want and knowing what they do want, they are creating these solutions that they have available to them when they find vibrational resonance with them. So what we're getting at is having the answer to the question doesn't mean that the person who's asking the question is ready for the answer. And that's the most significant thing that we want to say to anyone who has come up with a big solution based upon a mass consciousness question, is that we just want you to understand that having a book or having information is not different than this vortex which contains all of this. So the question isn't, are there answers available? The big question is the person who's asking the question in a vibrational place that they can receive the answer? And the thing that's so very interesting about that is that the vibration of the question or the vibration of the problem is a whole different vibration than the vibration of the answer or the vibration of the solution. So there are lots and lots and lots of people who have come to solutions and answers and know with everything that they are that if people would just listen to this, if people would just read this, but that's not the question that you really want to ask, because the question that you really want to ask is, what's the likelihood of them hearing this? There are people who all over the world, but there are people who come even to gatherings like this, who sit in the audience and sometimes even in the hot seat, who ask such powerful, powerful questions that they evoke equally powerful, powerful answers. But just because we express the power of the answer doesn't mean they get it, because they're still wadded up in the vibration of the question, you see. And so we think it's wonderful when you find something, but what if we were standing in your physical shoes? We would stand in the vortex as we approach this. Now feel the difference. From outside the vortex, it feels like, oh, I have a solution for a lot of people, and I have to find a way to get those people who really want it and need it to this book. But from inside the vortex, you know that this book and many others, and this process and many others, that there are many paths to the success that many people are seeking. And in your solution-based knowledge, you don't feel an urgency about any one book or about any one process, because you get it that people are going to find their own way to what they're ready for, and only to what they're ready for. In other words, as teachers, even as wonderful as any book is, as teachers, all that any of us can do is express from the vantage point that is us, and allow law of attraction to provide the cooperative components who are ready to hear what we have to say. Really, there is not one of you who has come with any opinion or belief that we will sway even the slightest little bit. In other words, we're not here to teach you the right way of eating or the right way of living or the right way of thinking, because in your diversity, it is the perfect balance that is causing the evolution of all things. It's so interesting as you watch what's going on in your world and you realize that on every subject there are all of these multiple opinions, and most of those people spend all of their time fighting against the other opinions instead of tending to their own vibration and coming into alignment with their own expansion, you see. So we want to say to you that we love it when you find something that you're excited about. And we think it is a wonderful thing when you focus yourself into the vortex and you then are able to feel the bigness and the fullness of your discovery. But from inside the vortex, you will acknowledge the perfect balance of life experience readying people for the next logical step for them. And you won't try too hard to make things happen. You'll be one who celebrates things being allowed to happen. You'll be one who celebrates conscious, deliberate motion forward. But you won't look for one solution or one answer to anything. There are trillions of cells in your body, each of whom has a vortex. And when a cell finds imbalance, it asks for improvement and, vibrationally speaking, finds it. So anything that anyone can do for anyone to help ease that gap between where they are and where they want to be, that is a beneficial thing. Do you know, we'll give you the words that would be most helpful, the most helpful book, the most helpful words that could be written for someone suffering from an illness. It won't be a very big book. The words are, it's going to be okay. Now, if someone could hear those words and believe them, their recovery would start immediately. So, why doesn't a book like that sell? Why doesn't a book like that sell? It's the best book. It is the answer. If someone could believe it, if they could feel that, their resistance would fall away, which is the only thing that is preventing them from. It's going to be okay. And we're not just talking about the illness. We're talking about the financial worries. We're talking about the relationship struggles. We're talking about all the reasons that this person is wadded up and not letting their cell have the recovery that's already queued up in the vortex. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. If we could convey our knowledge of the vortex and express in a way that they could hear. But what that means is, that would mean we would have to have the power of assertion. We would have to have the power to know their well-being so powerfully that we could make them vibrate in alignment with our knowledge. Well, that's what inspiration is, and that's why you're excited about that book, because you read enough that you began to find vibrational resonance with it, you see. But really, if you can stand in the vortex and feel that the world isn't broken, rather than stand outside the vortex and say, this is a book that will save millions, can you feel the difference? Mm-hmm. In other words, there's a softening of your vibration that will help that along that isn't quite there yet. So this conversation is not about the power of that book. There are so many people with so many answers that would help so many people, but they don't have access to them because you can't be actively involved in the problem and actively involved in the solution at the same time. It's just a fact of this powerful law of the universe. So the best you can do is just root for the author and root for the readers and root for mankind and stay focused upon the things that you're thrilled about, and know that people will find their path, and know that there's not just one path, and know that people will find their way, and know that if their desire is strong enough that eventually they'll find themselves on the brink of the vortex, and eventually that the vortex will take them in. And whether you're calling it a vortex, or whether you're calling it a healing, or whether you're calling it heaven, or whether you're calling it natural well-being, the words just don't matter at all. Everybody will find their way to their well-being in their own own good time. And the way any of us can amplify that and goose it up a little bit and make it stronger is by personal thriving. By personally thriving, not pointing out problems, by personally thriving. That is the path of least resistance to the masses. But there are a lot of people who are not thriving, who are frankly annoyed by those who do. The more I want to thrive and the more I'm not thriving and the more you're thriving, the more irritating you are to me. So you've written a book on well-being that I am not even interested in because I don't like you at all. You're thriving and I'm not thriving. In fact, it seems to me that you're getting more than your fair share of well-being. You might even be pinching off some of the thriving for the rest of us. You're thriving so well. And so why would I perpetuate your thriving? Why would I buy one thing of yours? Why would I help you thrive when you've got more thriving than you deserve? And we say, what are you going to do with someone like that? That in other words, you couldn't write a good enough book to change a vibration to one of acceptance. So, but guess what? You don't have to. Their life will cause them to continue to ask. In other words, it's just the way this contrast works. And so they keep asking and they keep becoming and they keep asking and they keep becoming. And the more who are overtly thriving, then in time, more will come to expect thriving. Something more?
I just felt that I already see it happening or feel it happening. People.
And yet, that wasn't the direction that you were speaking from. You were speaking of the people who need it, who will find it, right, rather than the existence of it and those who have already found it. This is just, you see, we're not talking about the book, and we're not talking about the people who will find the book. All of that is a wonderful thing. We're just talking about you in relationship to your vortex. Mm-hmm. Okay. So when you think about it and it thrills you, you're in alignment with your desires relative to this book. When you think about it and you feel elation, you're in alignment. When you think about it and you feel worry, or you think about it and you feel fitful, in other words, it's sort of like the conversation that we had at the beginning of the day,
right,
about the premonition. In other words, right, when you feel elation, you're right there in sync. Really good.
Thank you.
Yes, indeed.